Hello and welcome to the TCLF One-on-One Series, which is an interactive and comprehensive talk series launched by the Contemporary Law Forum to engage with the stakeholders of law. We interact with pivotal figures based in varied fields of law to track down rapid legal developments happening in the space, professional opportunities, discussing the rapid professional opportunities that define the field of law, as well as discussing and deliberating upon the growth of the vast sector of law. Today we have with us Ms. Shinjni Kharbanda, who is a senior legal manager with the SpiceJet Private Limited. She was also previously worked as a lawyer with the IndiGo Airlines. A graduate of the Christ School of Law, Bangalore, who went on to pursue her master's in international and corporate law, highly sought after degree in higher education and degree from the NYU School of Law, New York. Welcome, ma'am, and it's a pleasure to have you with us to talk about the various roles and responsibilities of an in-house counsel being in the capacity such as the one you're serving at. At a time when the world was gripped by the COVID pandemic, our learning and our modes of innovation remained boundless and limitless. So once again, on behalf of the entire team of TCLF, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you on this Sunday evening, because you're here to talk about something that's so close to your professional skill set, as well as your growth and your journey so far. So my first question is also primarily based on that, as to what motivated you to pursue law. We all of us are from law school, all of us are law graduates, some of us are lawyers, some of us have completed law, some of us are in the final year, but everybody has different reasons to pursue law. Someone comes from a legal background, while some has a different value system and a trajectory that one charts out in their mind. But what was your motivation to pursue law and enter this field?
That's a very good question to start with. But at the outset, I wanted to thank you for having me. I think what you are doing at TCLF is very commendable. You're actually giving an opportunity to law students to get a flavor of different kinds of industries and work that various lawyers do and in-house counsels do. So thank you so much for taking out time on a Sunday evening. Actually, all credit goes to you for doing this. And starting with your first question that you had about my journey and how I actually made a whole deep dive into this legal profession, which is very challenging and interesting at the same time. I actually did not set out to be, never dreamt of being a lawyer. That's not something I had envisaged that, I will be a corporate lawyer or an in-house counsel. At school, I was very active at journalism. So I used to write extensively. Creative writing was my very favorite pursuit, and public speaking. So you would see me every morning, delivering very interesting news items to students as in part of the whole, assembly culture that we have at schools. I was predominantly very inclined towards, journalism and commerce, because I come from a family of, hardcore business professionals and entrepreneurs. But my parents were like, okay, why don't you explore law? And at that time, corporate law was picking up, and reading and writing is one of the essential skills required for a lawyer. So I said, okay, why not explore this opportunity? And I happened to give the Christ College exam, and they had that entrance exam as well as a group discussion, personal interviews. So having crossed all of those rounds, I was like, okay. And when I got selected, I was like, okay, the faculty seems good. The university back then did offer good opportunities. So that was it. So I joined Christ Bangalore back then.
And there began the official commencement of your journey in law.
Yes.
And
yes.
moving on, my second question, talking about your law school journey itself, you've interned with various top-tier law firms such as Shardul, Mangaldas, Legal, which remains a dream for many law students across this country. You've also interned with the Supreme Court judge, which again is a very sought-after opportunity, something that's like a pinnacle for any law student. I would ask you, and through this forum, I would like for our viewers and our students to know, what is your advice? What is your tip for students who wish to pursue their internships or any kind of engagement with these entities in the field of law? Not just for the purposes of internship, but as a means to attain a greater clarity in terms of professional growth and in terms of understanding this complex space of law.
So internships is one thing we all grapple with during our, in law schools. And being a non-national law school student, I knew there were a lot of odds stacked up against me because frankly speaking, we did not have a placements committee early on in our law school. And we didn't have any internships committee to help us. So we were all by ourselves, fending for ourselves. But it's a good learning experience. What I learned during my time, that's how you can really sort of get good internships. And to tell you at the outset, I'm a first generation lawyer, so I really didn't have any guidance. You're all by yourself. There is a lot of trial and error method involved. But what I learned, like how you can sort of get good and credible internships is that plan in advance. Plan at least 3 to 4 months in advance. Have a good CV and cover letter. There are times when I see students writing to me with, cover letters having a lot of typos and, sentences which make no grammatical sense. So just read, spend time on your cover letter, spend time on your CV. I think that makes a lot of difference. And HRs do give a lot of, of various law firms give a lot of importance to cover letter and CV. Third thing, if you can participate in parliamentary debates, moots, or conferences, that becomes a very big, differentiating factor between a student who has not done all of this and a student who has pursued these. So I used to actually actively participate in academic conferences each year. So I had set out that every semester I am going to participate in one conference or a moot. So you need to be strategic about it. And if you are able to do it, nothing will stop you. I think you can, initially, you might face sort of restrictions or lack of opportunities, but keep at it. I think people do take notice of it. So even at conferences, if you present a good paper, there are people from law firms attending it as a guest speaker, or you have professors there attending it. So people are happy to give you referrals, take note of your work. So that's how you can go about it. You need to be a little smart about it, but yeah, it's possible. Nothing's impossible. If you try, I think it's very much doable. Yeah. If I can do it, so can I think everyone can. So it's not some rocket science that, oh my God, I can't intern in Legal or Shardul Amarchand.
Yeah, it only seems possible until you take the right step and until it's done.
Exactly.
And
if you don't try, you can't really sort of know. So you don't go by, oh my God, it's tough to get. It is tough. I won't lie. I think it's not, rainbows and unicorns in this sector. You really need to put in time and effort. But yeah, if you don't try, you won't know.
True, and that should be the spirit and attitude. So moving on, moving on from your law school journey to your master's school, which was in the NYU School of Law, one of the best law schools there is in the world when it comes, especially when it comes to business corporate laws. You also worked with a fintech company in USA,
Right.
And it remains to be one. New York City remains to be one of the top destinations for corporate lawyers, and we all know the grind and the obstacles that come in the way. So, any suggestion or any tip from your end to students who are targeting, law schools in the US with an intention to perhaps land up a traineeship offer or a job offer, or somehow making themselves amenable to the US legal market?
Right. Okay, that's a very good question. I think a lot of students write to me directly on LinkedIn and other platforms asking me this, that, how do I get through a US law school and a good one? So the first step is that look at US law school rankings. They differ from, specialization to specialization. Say for IPR, Berkeley is quite good. NYU has a fantastic, international arbitration course, corporate LL.M course, as well as human rights LL.M. It's very sought after. So you need to really see the rankings. basis what kind of course you want to pursue. And second, a lot of alumni told me this, that, be clear in your head why you want to go for the LLM. Because frankly speaking, it's an expensive course and you would be spending 9 months of your time there. So be clear why you are going for it. If you're just, it's not good enough reason. If you say that it looks good on CV, that really doesn't help. It's not going to add value. No value will be added if you don't, take adequate sort of, effort and time in thinking why you're going for it. And a lot of people end up making snarky comments that, LLM is just like a holiday or something. It isn't. It's a very grilling course if you really put in the time and effort. And every school offers different opportunities. When I say opportunities, there are a lot of events, academic events organized on daily basis. Like NYU had 10 events in a day. So you're really spoiled for choice and you're like, okay, which one should I pick over the other? So there's a lot of time management. You have courses at odd hours. I've had evening classes and early morning classes. So there's a lot of time management, as well as, you get a lot of opportunities to interact with your New York lawyers there. And thirdly, I would say that if you are really keen on doing LLM, start your applications on time. So US law schools have an early application deadline and there's a late application deadline. They most generally all law schools have that. So if you want to be, increase your chances of selection, aim for that early application deadline, because not a lot of people end up applying on time. So the chances of getting through good law schools increases manifold. And fourth thing, I would say that do research well. There are a lot of LLM application websites which talk about SOP. SOP is that statement of purpose that you need to draft. So every law school has a different requirement. So I remember for NYU, it was 750 words. So how do you crunch your whole statement and, everything about your life and why you want to do an LLM in 750 words? So you need to be very, brief and crisp in writing your SOPs. So that's about it. Yeah.
Precisely sums up what the various components of the application process is. But taking a step back from your experience of working in a fintech company in US, post your completion of LLM, what has your journey been like in the NYU School of Law from Christ Law School in India, to taking a leap of studying international corporate law in a highly competitive law school? What is your advice for students who wish to pursue an LLM after the world has come out of a pandemic and after the meaning of law and the practice of law has gone a fundamental shift?
Right. Right. So I would tell you, I'll go 2 steps back. I'll tell you about my reason of doing an LLM back then, because I started off working at a law firm in India, and we used to work a lot with US firms. And when I used to get that opportunity on working on transactions with US based lawyers or US companies, I felt that why not do an LLM to get a more global perspective of, the transactions that I'm working on. And even my immediate, boss who I used to work with, she studied at Georgetown, and she explained me how, her experience of doing an LLM abroad was a transformative one. And it did add a lot of value in her work when she came back to India. And when I went there, I could see the style of teaching and method was very different. In US, they have Socratic method, and more so, there's a lot of focus that US law schools place on networking and informational interviews. So I'll just explain you very briefly what informational interviews are. It is essentially you reach out to, New York-based lawyers and understand from them how, how did they go about their career trajectory, understand from them how they reached at their present position and what excites them in their roles and what's the challenges that they face on day-to-day basis. So there's a lot of learning you can pick from the lawyers that are working there. And for me, I try to create a good balance of studies and co-curricular activities. So I was fortunate that I got selected by the NYU flagship journal, that's NYU Law and Business, and that journal gave me an opportunity to not only review those articles that people were submitting to a well-known journal like this one, also participate in a lot of academic conferences that this journal committee was organizing. So you have a lot of exposure you get in terms of in the field of corporate law. Apart from that, I was also the LL.M head of the South Asian Business Association there. So again, so all of these experiences combined, they do make a change and they do broaden your horizons, I would say. So, in one word, I would say the LLM experience was transformative in a lot of sense. It broadened my perspective of how to go about things, at work, and how to become a good lawyer, because your research skills get honed when you are in such an environment, I would say.
Right. And such an environment that is conducive to you developing your skills, and not just
Right.
professional legal skills, but also skills like personality and
Right.
time management,
Absolutely.
professionalism, working in
Absolutely.
the harsh circumstances. And by harsh, I don't mean
Correct.
toxic, but really where the stakes are
Yeah.
so high. And
Hi.
you
Yeah.
doing a master's and then coming back to the Indian legal market serves as a classic example of how you bring an international experience into, back home,
Right.
where you
Right.
can serve in a very niche area. For many
Right.
of us, including myself, um, aviation industry is something that remains a fascinating phenomena. I don't know much
Right.
about it. I don't know
Right.
much about the legal framework over
Right.
it. I
Right.
just I know that it's a domain of corporate law,
Right.
and
Right.
I just know it probably from the prism of M&A, if I may say so. Now,
Right.
my next question is that when you came
Mhm.
back, you had a
Right.
lot of opportunities, a multitude of opportunities of working
Right.
as a
Mhm.
lawyer with law firms like Phoenix Legal,
Right. Right.
Sam, and then
Right.
you made a fundamental shift to coming into the aviation industry. So from a
Right. Mm.
generalist, basically, you chose to be a
Mm.
specialist in a
Right.
specific
Mm.
niche field of law.
Right.
How was
Mhm.
that shift? Was that shift
Mhm.
calculated, or it was out of sheer like the fact that you want to do something challenging and putting your skills to in a space where you can put them to test
Mhm.
and really come out
Right.
as a shining lawyer. So what was that shift like, if you could tell us?
I would say that this shift wasn't an uncomfortable shift. To be honest, as lawyers, we are at law firms especially, you will notice this, that you'll have variety of clients. You'll be working for a pharma client one day, you'll be working for an IT client the other day. So when you're a general corporate lawyer at any law firm, you would be actually exposed to a variety of industries. So that's fundamentally, as a lawyer, I think that's a skill you should develop over the time, that you should be able to work across industries. Your fundamental legal skills don't change. Your research, writing skills stay intact. Your exposure broadens in a general corporate team, and I think that helped me when I joined, an aviation team in a airline company, because I had worked on an aviation transaction when I was in a law firm. So I did get a bit of a flavor of what I was getting into. And I would also say that my stint at New York, in TransferWise, where I worked at a fintech company, also gave me some sort of, perspective of how it is to work in an in-house space. So fintech back then, no one had heard of. When I came back to India and I told people I worked at a fintech company and TransferWise, and now people know TransferWise. Well, the name has changed to Wise Limited. Back then, nobody knew about it, and it seemed like, okay, what did you exactly do? So there was a lot of explanation I had to do back then. And fintech as a sort of sector has grown tremendously in the last 2, 3 years. So, but talking about the whole in-house space, I did understand that you have variety of stakeholders. There is a lot of challenges that you face in in-house, which is challenging as well as I would say interesting at the same time. You get to learn a lot. There is a lot of learning. Every day is a new day. And when you work in in-house space, every team is your client. So every stakeholder is your client. So you need to develop the ability to interface across teams. So that's something I really enjoyed doing at TransferWise. We were dealing with, changing regulatory environment and, changing sort of business requirements on a day-to-day basis. And the business mission in itself seemed very relatable. So when I joined TransferWise, I met the founders and they told me that they wanted to simplify international money transfers. So when you send money from one country to the other, there are a lot of hidden bank charges and transfer fees. There are a lot of those fees. Being a law student going to US, I faced that problem myself. So I could relate to it that, this is something that they are trying to solve globally. So when I had that experience, when I moved back to India and moved to an airline company eventually, I knew what I was getting into. So it really helped me sort of make that transition very easy.
Yes, so basically, technically, you were at the helm of change making and
Right,
engaging with the prime stakeholders
right,
based in the
right,
aviation industry.
right, right, right.
Now, the last question is also the entire theme of today's one-on-one, which is
Right.
talking about the roles and responsibilities of an in-house counsel.
Mm-hmm.
We've
Okay.
talked about your experience in law school. We've talked about your journey, which led up to your choosing aviation industry. You've also let
Right,
in on our audience how your normal day goes about in the aviation
right,
industry and what fascinates you, what challenges you about this field, and what perhaps is an inspiration for many who would want to later on take
mm-hmm.
aviation civil industry as a career
Right,
plausible career option. So, what are the roles and responsibilities of an in-house counsel? What are the kind and the nature of allied laws, if I may say so, or cases that you
right,
come across on a daily basis when you're working
right,
in this sector that, I,
right,
as far as I am concerned, is such a dynamic field that has not
right,
been encumbered by pandemic or
mm-hmm.
anything of that sort. So, what
Right,
are the roles and
right,
responsibilities of an in-house counsel, and what is the threshold for young lawyers who wish to become
right.
in-house counsels later on?
Okay. That's a very good question. I would say at the outset, start with spending few years at a law firm. It will give you the ability to work on challenging transactions, learn to draft well. Because when you spend time on transaction documents and legal memos, you will learn those skills very well. And there's a lot of effort put in training lawyers and associates when you start off in a law firm. When you join an in-house role, and when you're in a company, there is not that much time to train you with these basic skills. So they expect you that you have a bit of experience and knowledge to take. So from the first day you have to start running, so there isn't that much time that you're given to sort of take it all in and learn. You do get mentorship. I think I'm actually right now reporting to senior vice president. So there is a lot of ownership you have to take. There's a lot of responsibility, but at the same time you learn a lot. I think I won't say that there isn't learning involved, but the training that you get at law firms helps you immensely when you transition to an in-house role. And talking about aviation sector, just to give a flavor to students of what it is, there are various teams. So aviation teams are fairly, 20 to 25 people, you would say. It's a fairly big size team that you have because of the nature and volume of work involved. So there is aircraft leasing, cargo. As you see, there's a lot of cargo business that's picked up during the pandemic. Then there is commercial work. So a lot of the products or the promotion offers that you see, the free like discounts or some ancillary services that you get, like some like you would know about Spice Snacks or the seats that you get or free meals. So anything to do with that, that's all commercial. Then there is IT. There's a lot of, development that happens on the IT front as well. Then you have regulatory work, a lot of regulatory work. So if you keep tab on the news, there is every day there are, aviation is a very regulated sector. So there are circulars that DGCA and Ministry of Civil Aviation, keep publishing on various aspects, especially in COVID, passenger charter or One Day Bharat, as you call it. There were a lot of circulars on daily basis coming. So you had to be apprised about the changes that the government is bringing about in the sector. And apart from that, there is airport operations. So you have a lot of licensing that you need to do with airports. You need to enter into contracts with them. So all in all, I think it's a very challenging space, but I think every day is a new day. And COVID has actually spinned things around a bit much. It has been a black swan event for the airline sector. As you know, the planes were grounded. We had the MAX issue as well, the Boeing MAX issue. So there were various issues that kept cropping up from time to time. But airline companies, I need to give them huge credit on how they sort of, came up with very innovative business models from time to time to keep themselves afloat. For example, the passenger charter business, overnight business teams and legal teams had to work together to understand what this passenger charter business is and to draft contracts, because that's something we hadn't done before. So to get that sort of, you needed to have that ability to work fast and be nimble on your feet to sort of understand these regulations and translate it to the business teams in simplified language. Because end of the day, they want to know yes or no answer. Can you do it or can you not do it? So that's where a lawyer's role steps in. You need to simplify it and explain them in how to navigate, complex regulations and how to sort of, conduct the business in short.
Yes, and taking a cue from what you said, it comes across as a very interdisciplinary field because it has consumer preferences, it has to do with
Right. Yes.
adjusting
Yes.
between the
Yes.
government regulations, keeping business interests
Correct.
aside, and at
Right.
times,
Right.
like you said, it's a very regulated framework.
Sector. Yeah.
Lawyers cannot afford to miss out on any development in this space, and it also
Correct.
involves tremendous amount of consultancy. So I think that's enough of
Right.
a guideline or a manifesto or
Right.
just a path
Right.
for any law student who aspires
Right.
to take on working as an in-house counsel in the aviation industry, which offers you a terrific chance to
Yeah.
interact with the stakeholders in the ecosystem of this
I
civil
would say
aviation.
similar because predominantly every stakeholder is a client of yours in a company. So that's how the change happens. Because you need to, not only manage your deadlines. So there would be days you would have like 5 teams calling and sending you emails about different work. So you'll have to prioritize. There's a lot of time management, and that's something I always learned from my seniors when I started out in in-house roles. That treat every business team as a client, and when you do that, you are able to sort of add value, and you're able to simplify things for them and help them. So, like in law firms, you just give a memo and that's about it. Your job is done. Here, you actually see the consequences of your decisions. So, the advice you give, you see the implementation part of it. That they will actually, the teams will keep coming to you till that product goes live or till the transaction is completed. So, it's very different, but end of the day, I think everything has their pros and cons, and it's a good space to be in.
That's actually a great way of putting it, and even a better way of concluding it, that it does not limit to a consultancy, but it's also owning up and taking up
Yeah.
responsibility for the kind of consultancy that you do, face the
Yeah.
consequences, and
Right.
make sure that there is due diligence, and that's exactly the contours of due diligence practice in, I assume, in the aviation industry. So I wish you all the best. And if there are any
Thank you so
parting
much.
thoughts that you would, because I covered a lot of aspects of different. I had an opportunity of covering different aspects
Yeah.
of the same question itself by the diversity of opinions that you had on different milestones or different parts of the questions that we discussed. And you also very beautifully highlighted how important and the magnitude of the stakes that are involved for an in-house legal counsel, and what all you have to possess in terms of reaching up till that point. And I wish you all the best on behalf of TCLF. And
Thank you
once
so
again,
much.
thank you for speaking to us about the fundamental and comprehensive roles and responsibilities that come along with being an in-house legal counsel. And we wish you all the best for your future endeavors. And we hope to remain engaged with you and talk regularly about the aviation industry as well as your experience with that. So, once again, thank you for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you, Simran. I think you've done a splendid job. You've actually navigated with different questions to give a flavor to the audience on what in-house space is. But I would just sum it up in one thing that I had heard from US lawyers that law profession is a marathon, not a sprint. So you will face a lot of highs and lows in this profession. Don't lose heart. I think keep at it. And if you put in the hard work and the number of hours in it, there's nothing that's stopping you. And I think I wish everyone all the best in their respective professions. And please feel free to message me. If you have any questions, any further questions, I'm available anytime. You can message me directly on LinkedIn and ask any career questions that you have.
That's really generous of you, and I'm sure our editors and our audience will be mighty happy in engaging with you. And thank you so much again for sparing out your
Thank
time
you.
and for
Thank you.
being so open and talking to us about the accessible field that the aviation industry is from a legal perspective. So thank you once again, and have a good day
Thank
now.
you. You too. Take care. Bye bye.